Hey, good morning. Welcome to another Collab and Innovation Conference. I'm super excited to feature a couple companies in our accelerator. Anthony Regalado is the founder of Inarco Labs, and Kartik, I'm not going to even try to say your last name, Kartik.
Hmm.
Kartik um, is a both companies, like I said, in our accelerator. Kartik is building Avocado Bets. How are you both doing today?
Doing good, man. How are you doing? Good to see you as always. So,
Yeah, we're doing great
Yeah,
over here.
yeah, everything doing well. It's end of the year, so always a good time to catch up with you all. Kartik, you where are you based right now? I know you travel
uh,
all over.
yeah, so I'm in Cleveland, Ohio right now. So just got back to the Arctic tundra. So, uh,
Nice. Yeah.
yeah,
How cold is it over there?
20 degrees maybe, but it depends if you are hit by a wind gust or not. Because if you're hit by a wind gust, I would like tack on another like negative 10 degrees to that. So it'd probably be like 10 degrees then at that point.
Got it. So avocado bets, why don't you tell folks a little bit about um just how this came about, how you came about, coming up with the company and the problem that you're all solving.
Yeah, so well, first off, a little bit of background about Avocado Bets. We are a peer-to-peer social wagering platform. So in theory, you can invite your friends to bet on legitimately anything with anything. We just got regulatory approval to operate in several states. We got banking clearance to have payouts. Finally be occur on the platform. So if someone were to deposit funds, they're able to now withdraw funds, which has been a process over the last several months. But it's different than Kalshi and Polymarket in how a lot of people interpret, social wagering. They set topics and they set basically what you can in theory, put money into in a market. We are completely user generated. So someone can make it, private like Snapchat where, it's you and your friends watching the videos, talking to each other, and then ultimately placing the bets and having those funds, dispersed to the appropriate account. Or you can make it public like TikTok, where in theory, anyone in the world, you don't even need to be a bettor. You can watch people's bets,
Mhm.
and we're launching, live streams and all that stuff where people can jump in and watch things happen in live time as well. So that's kind of what we're doing. And I've been in the betting space since I was 14. I'm a degenerate myself. I say this is a platform built for the degenerates by the degenerates. And so, yeah, man, I think it's a cool opportunity what we're doing, and I appreciate you, allowing me to talk about it here. So,
Yeah, and a follow-up question. So what behaviors did you observe that put you, in the betting world, um, and just ready for this new category? Was it something that you saw that, you know,
it,
yeah.
yeah, and it's interesting that when I first thought of the idea, and it's always like kind of come to me over the last couple of years, but I never really executed on it until about a year ago. It's always been like with my friends or whoever, people will always do what we call like, let's say side bets, where they're just betting on, ridiculous stuff just in their daily life, but you can never go back and actually watch that on film or actually
Mhm.
see that. And so I'd be at the bar with a few of my friends and we would bet on my buddies trying to do something or whatnot, and we'd all let's say short his stock in essence, saying no way that's going to happen or whatever. But and it's always hilarious, but you can never go back and actually watch it. And so I was like, well, these sorts of interactions happen billions of times a day. If you could capture it on camera, the amount of people that would actually watch this stuff and that would bet on this stuff would be crazy. It's like people aren't necessarily trying to make money on it. They're just trying to put their stuff on the internet and have, fun interaction that way. If you want to try to make money, you certainly can, I guess. But that's kind of where that idea came from. And it was crazy that no one had built in this exact space that we're building in, too. Like our legal team, when they were doing an analysis, and it would have been way easier if there were people building in that space, but it saved us a lot of time. But there was no one in it. And so it was also nuanced based on what states you go to, whether or not you can operate, what the limits are that you can win or lose in a 24-hour period, all these sorts of things. Um, so yeah, yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's a great space. I think we all saw how well Kalshi is doing. So it just shows that, the market is there and people are looking for this.
And what's interesting too is that I think it's not a winner take all space. I actually think Kalshi and Poly Market help us
I
because
agree.
they are creating people's definition of betting was only, oh, I either have to go play blackjack on, or roulette at a casino floor, or I'm going to be betting on a sports game, whether it was legal or not back in the day, right? And so that was kind of the definition. Polymarket and Kalshi have taken it one step further, where it's like, okay, I can bet on topics. Even though on Bovada 10 years ago, I could bet on a presidential election in the Cayman Islands. Like it's
Mhm.
now just become like, okay, more mainstream, but it's getting people's psychology to think, oh wow, maybe betting is, more different than that. And so I like to tell people we're doing what Kalshi and Polymarket have done, just 10,000 times more on steroids. We're just making the Wild West. Whatever the heck you want to do. I'm not going to tell you what you can or can't bet on. It's all user, generates, so to each their own at that point.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. And taking it over to you, Anthony, you and I met in Columbus, Ohio, but as many people know, I mean, Columbus is considered, not a very diverse place, but there are a lot of different cultures in Columbus, for everyone watching. So, with me being a Caribbean and Anthony, a Latino, we just naturally kind of gravitated towards each other. Um, but just to see, that friendship grow into now the startup that you're working on. I
Mm.
know you've lived in Bogota, you've lived, in several regions around the world. Why don't you tell people a little bit about, Anarco and how this business kind of came about?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I started in the tech space from Bogota. I moved there from my time in university when I was 25. I left, stayed there 10 years, got to work with great startups over there, got to see a lot of talent really grow in the Latin American ecosystem. And Bogota kind of became a hearth for growth during 2015, 2016-ish era. And it was just a really interesting time. It also kind of like, from another perspective, gave me a lot of perspective as to how global teams work, how they collaborate, how clarity is so important in the process of building any kind of like form of innovation or any new product or even just implementing any kind of operational solution within teams. I think it's important. And that's kind of how Anarco came to be. There's a lot of indication right now, I think, in the economy in the United States that any company, and this actually came from one of my mentors from Lifted Latam, which is one of the biggest logistics companies in Latin America now. He always told me that a lot of people think tech is just itself a company, right? Like tech is an industry or a vertical in its own, and really it's a horizontal. And it's really about being able to give kind of like a democratized access. And I really like what Kartik is doing too, because it's really just about democratizing and giving this access to a service that you once thought wasn't something that you could do at scale or at mass and put in the hands of individuals. And I think that that's really what we're doing at Anarco, where we're giving consultancy expertise. We're giving a roadmap directly into the hands of small business owners in the United States, which is a growing kind of need here. That sort of consultancy, innovation consulting, let's say, was something that was very exclusive to corporations that could actually afford it if they wanted to engage with an Accenture or a Bain Consulting. And what we're doing is with Path, we are directly creating kind of like that democratized access towards just extended intelligence, implementing AI and being able to say, okay, this is what my business needs, very specific to my personalized needs, the needs of our culture and the needs to our stage as a company.
I love that. I love that. So you both are, kind of like you said, you're innovating in spaces that, have been pretty much stagnant. I think the um obviously gambling, I mean that's just growing, right? And there's a lot that will happen over time, but I think it's just still a good time to be in, and all. It's something that everyone's doing. So again, why not democratize it to everyone? Um, I guess what are some of the challenges that you all have been experiencing? I know you're both in the Collab Accelerator, but what are some kind of challenges as you're navigating the space?
I think one of the challenges that we're facing right now, and I think it's actually an interesting challenge. There's a lot of people talking now about founder-led distribution, and every time you and I talk, we talk about content, just getting content out there. And really, I think distribution is changing. I think 5 years ago or even 3 years ago, a lot of people were talking still about SEO, Google, right? Just implementing some kind of distribution strategy from a 0 to 1 perspective. I think now it's again that democratization. People want to get to know the founder. They want to talk to the founder. They want to see them build in public. They want to be able to tell them direct feature sets even. And I saw a very interesting video about this where they were essentially talking about that. Like the roadmap is now going to be created by your digital community that you can harness before you even launch a product. And getting into that phase right now is where my biggest challenge is. And we actually have a really great Colombian marketer that's joining us on our team right now. And she's implemented, 0 to 50,000 TikToks. And essentially just harnessing that community is going to be like the next big challenge for us.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. What about you, Carter?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest challenge has been elements of the unknown, which is in a gambling space. Like we built this app and we finished it months ago. Like in February, it was when it was complete. And I was just like, oh yeah, this would be cool to build. Let's just do it. Right. And let's get a great design team and whatnot to, go on it. And we did that. But then this thing could have failed like 5 different times before you even got to this point because of all like the regulatory, like once you clear, okay, you're legal to operate here, and then we go to our payout provider and they're like, well, now we're comfortable with it. However, you have to get sign off from our bank originator out of Iowa to actually have funds transmitted. And, it's a 50-50 shot. And so it's like, okay, like I think the element of the unknown, but it also builds better businesses too, because you also have to think strategically and like, okay, if this doesn't work, how do I get to this? If that doesn't work, how do I get to the next step? And so, for me personally, I think what Anthony said. A lot of those sorts of things are very true. I've I feel like anyone that builds a company at some point feels similar circumstances, right? But I just feel like getting it to the point that it's gotten has been all completely in the blind for for a lot of that stuff. Whether or not that's like the right thing to say or whatnot, it's
Yeah.
I think it builds better companies too, which is a good thing. So
Yeah. No, I mean, that sounds like entrepreneurship. It's hard to really predict, how things could play out, especially when you're in a disruptive industry like this. Um, what's a moment where breaking the industry rules have really paid off for both of you all, just for the aspiring entrepreneurs or founders watching this? Anthony, you want to go first? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that when we're talking about breaking rules, it's really just about breaking your own perceptions. For me, it's really just kind of shooting in the dark is half of an entrepreneur's journey. It's being able to break your perceptions as to asking permission or right. And half of us, I think, we have a chip on our shoulder when we're building something. And I'm sure like Kartik just going through so much regulatory aspects of just launching something 0 to 1 that's a very difficult journey to see what that end game is going to look like. But it sounds like, first of all, congratulations, Kartik. Sounds like you've gotten through a lot of loopholes in the last couple of months there. And that I know just that and building that way can cause a lot of anxiety for an individual in general as an entrepreneur. But being able to have that kind of optimism, being able to understand that you have a vision to implement, and I agree with Kartik, like adapt and just kind of have no surprises, really like just really not be surprised by anything that comes up. I think is part of the resilience that it really takes to be a founder in general. And really, like I said, like breaking the rules, I think it's just more breaking your own perceptions, really.
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, and going off of what Anthony said, I think it's also important not to get too high or too low. Because I think at the very beginning, when I first started building stuff, if something went great, I would get super excited. And then if something went, terrible, you'd kind of be real down in the dumps and you'd kind of be like, why am I doing this? Right. But then I think like as as you build though, and to answer your question, I personally have always thought you want to build something in a space where no one has done it because that's the whole point of building. Why would I want to build something that 500 people have already built, right? I want at the end of the day to build a category, and I think we really have a shot to do it, and that's what drives me. To go with what Anthony said, having a chip on your shoulder. I feel like in order to be great in anything, whether it's your 9 to 5 job, whether it's building something, whether it's in sports, whatever it might be, you kind of have to have that chip on your shoulder, and you also have to know that when something happens, that there's always a pivot. Like the only way you lose is if you quit, right? It's
Hmm.
very easy to
Hmm.
take the easy way out. Just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna go enjoy my life and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I think we all, life is all about moments and how can you capitalize that? And when you have an opportunity to, do you take it? And for me, like, I don't know, I feel like it'd be pretty cool to be, the person that says, yeah, we built the company where you can legit bet on anything. It's not out there. You can bet on
Yeah.
whatever. So that's what drives me.
I love that. And also, if folks, I really recommend everybody to follow Kartik because, especially on Instagram, because you're all over, and I love that one thing, just attending events, whether I think I saw a photo with you and Kevin Durant multiple times at different events. So, just with both of you, where does culture and community show up in your product strategy? Kartik, you can go first.
Yeah, I mean, community is going to be everything, at the end of the day, because it's all about, how do you get, people and their friends to start, and that's kind of why we've started with universities and fraternities in general. So Ohio State's one where we have a few fraternities lined up. Arizona State is where we're going second after that, and it's all outward from there, right? Because you hope when people really in frats as thought leaders on campuses as they get into it and they really like it, and then you start tailoring the product to fit their needs specifically, then it becomes more sticky. They tell their friends that are not part of frats, and it spreads on campuses with 100,000 people. And then you don't really even have to market it all that much, right? At that point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so that's the big thing. And then culture wise, it's all about the stigma. And it's all about like, how do you make gambling and betting go from, oh, this is such a risky thing to, oh no, it's really just what you do in your everyday life and you just don't even know it. And I think, there's a study that more people now have thrown more dollars into betting than they have into the stock market this year. And I actually saw that trend coming a few years ago because there's a lot of kids, especially in the demographic we serve, that don't have enough money to really invest in stocks. If you think about it, if I have like $200 to my name, am I going to go throw that $200 into Apple stock, make 5%? Great, I made a whole $10. Whoop-de-doo. I can go buy Chipotle after
mhm,
like 2 years, right? No, they're instead going to throw less money on a three-team parlay and try to make money that way. And then they would throw money into an investment or whatever they have to. And so it's all about changing the stigma and, going to those events, meeting guys like, KD and all these people. It's more validating than anything when they all say that they love it, and that they would want to be a part of it. And so, um, I hope that answers your question, but I think that's,
yeah,
the main, things there.
yeah. I love that. And just for anyone, I think someone once said to me in Ohio, it was an NBA player as well, but he said that unfortunately, a lot of small cities in America have an invisible glass ceiling. So I think that's very important. Just traveling around and getting feedback from other people because you know we typically you'll hear the same thing. So I think that helps entrepreneurs and founders. Um, Anthony, what about you? I know you're building essentially a product in multiple continents. So how have you I guess how are you designing a platform that kind of feels more like a movement, by the way, and to and I think that's to Kartik's point. I think you don't want a product to feel like a tool, but it should hopefully feel
Yeah.
like a movement where people are getting involved.
Well, I think something that, like listening to Kartik speak, it reminds me of the 2022 kind of crypto days. I was building products in that space, and there was a lot of movement with peer-to-peer platforms in general. And unfortunately, it didn't really take off as much as a product, as more as just like kind of, the degen kind of betting environment. But I feel like you're really productizing that, so it's really cool. But there was this one concept that really motivated me to build what we're building today that also came out of the crypto phase, which was the concept of a decentralized autonomous organization, which is what is the future of a company? What does that look like? How do people start to contribute from different perspectives? We would talk a lot about polyprofessionalism. I know that like a lot of people talk about like poly relationships or whatever, but polyprofessionalism would be how do we work and engage with different companies using our skills, being able to implement them and helping those companies in tactical ways on a short term without having to kind of sign away the traditional career aspect. From a community perspective, I think there's a lot of strength in the United States right now economically as to how we're contributing to companies. Unfortunately, I think there's a huge kind of undertow right now happening with layoffs. But for me, when I see that 20,000 people get laid off from Accenture, I see 20,000 opportunities to create new experts that are contributing to their communities locally and that they can implement their skills that may not be appreciated by a company like Accenture, but then they can use something like Path in order to implement solutions for locally for their small businesses that are going to give more value at the end of the day to their direct communities. And the way that we're really trying to also focus on community, I think, is just understanding the global community. Like we want in the design of this platform, we want this to be kind of like an application layer on top of all of the tools that already exist that is conversational more than it is focused on, giving some kind of dashboard or metrics or analytics that you would get through a Microsoft tool. We really want it to be able to speak directly to small business owners in a way, in a method that doesn't necessarily have to fulfill a lot of jargon and can really solve their problems. So on the cultural aspects, I think being able to connect global teams to those small business owners is going to be important. Right now, you can get great talent in Latin America at a fraction of what would be the price here in the United States, and they're great teams that are smart. They're working with Americans already. At the end of the day, it's kind of the counter to Fiverr, which I think Fiverr is very focused on just providing talent at a very low cost. What we're trying to do is create the AI strategic kind of conversational element or interface that allows a small business owner to directly manage those teams towards the success of growing their business. And that really
Mhm.
is what's needed there, as opposed to just hiring or guessing. I think I need a designer. I think I need a developer. I think I need somebody who can implement a Microsoft solution. Instead of just hiring them directly, we really want to give small business owners the ability to reduce risk when they're really trying to implement a solution for their company.
Got it. And as we're wrapping out right now, if there were, um, I guess, two things. So just use this opportunity as a chance, to let folks know how they could get in touch with you guys, and also um, advice for builders. So, you're both building companies. If there was one thing that you think someone should ignore completely, what is it?
I'll let Carter go on that one.
Mhm.
No, ignore completely. I think you have to ignore people that have never done it that will have an opinion about it. I think that it's very easy to get in your head or to listen to outside influences. And then I'd also double down on it, and where I think building in public, as Anthony said, is the biggest thing. Like I'll post updates on LinkedIn, I'll post demos on LinkedIn, and just kind of show like benchmarks, because I think it's really powerful for people to see, okay, we went from here, now this milestone happened. Now we went from here. Oh, wait, there was a setback. Be very public about. Oh, yeah. Like stuff happens. I would just say don't listen to like naysayers that have never done it, because they'll all be there. And then, you'll never build anything if you do that. So,
Mhm. I love that.
Yeah, I think builders recognize builders and game recognizes game. You know what I mean? So I really do think that A lot of what happens, I think, sometimes in certain ecosystems and small business or smaller town ecosystems, let's say, is you do get that glass ceiling. A lot of people that are publicly out there, they have a lot of great marketing behind them, but really, what are they building? What really have they contributed? And what really have they done to spend dollars? I worked in a space before. I was working as ED of the Hispanic Chamber, and I got to really see a lot of people receive government grants. I got to see a lot of people receive a lot of huge government funding. And with those opportunities, what did they actually build? And before they even built anything, they were already celebrating, you know? And I think sometimes I see that, and it's good to recognize that and to give them their props, but to really hold people accountable around you. Ignore the people who have never built before. I think Kartik like really hit the nail on the head there. What are they really building? Are they really solving problems? I think it's super key to see what they're doing to contribute to their communities and then collaborate with them. And then those that's your tribe. Those are the people that, you know, you can sit down and try to solve a problem with, whether it's a marketing problem, an ops problem, a product problem. You sit down with them, and that's the tribe that you want to kind of be able to help you and collaborate with you.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for participating in this. Make sure you everyone joining Avocado Bets, Kartik, connect with them on LinkedIn, Instagram, Anthony Regalado, Nomadic Futurist, right, on Instagram, and he's also on LinkedIn. Appreciate you all for your time and thank you for joining.